that he offers. So when we start talking about maturity is one of those words that maybe gets thrown around a lot without really maybe knowing truly what it is. And I think it's one of those that can kind of be used, I guess, to describe baby pigs, but real talking about maturity, a lot of times that just really often dictates our endpoint. So I think that's a good topic too. We don't have to get real deep in on what that term means, but I think there's some folks that are probably watching. I think it's almost one of those things that those topics or questions that folks are they're maybe almost too afraid to ask, if that makes sense. Like, I really don't know what he means when he's talking about maturity, or I don't know what he means when he says that one's quicker, or he says that one's later maturing. So if we want, I think it would be good to kind of define what that is just a little bit. I know we've talked about it some, especially with those other two gilts, but I think it's one of those things where I don't think we need to be afraid to really kind of describe what that is for some folks.
Well, one of the things the way I look at maturity is their ability to take natural lean gain to a heavier weight. And so we can find some really big extremes in that where they never flesh or get fat and they're just always putting on lean body weight. And then we can find some other extremes where they're immediately getting fat without any lean gain at all. And so I would tell you from a maturity standpoint, he might be a little earlier, but I kind of want to know what he's out of. Like, I kind of looking at that dude and thinking like that'd be kind of a fun one. That's how it's just their ability to take lean gain to heavier weights or the lack thereof back and forth. It's just how early in their life they can. Early maturing means they're going to put on fat sooner and maybe not get as vertically tall. I would be considered maturing. Blake, how do you look at that?
Well, it's such a fine line to me when you're buying baby pigs at a pig sale and talking about maturity, because ultimately, skinny pigs don't bring a lot of money a lot of times. So they're going to have to look pretty good when you sell them. But I would say from a buyer's experience, knowing the kind of barn that you're putting the pigs in. I mean, if you got a colder climate, obviously one with a little more bark is going to shoot up and trim up a little bit and be about right. Vice versa, if you got a warm barn, you can get away with a little skinnier look pig that's a little later maturing. So I would say, before we get too deep into the maturity thing, figure out what kind of pigs work best in your barn. It doesn't matter if your neighbor has a enclosed barn that's temperature controlled. Obviously, he can get away with being able to put on more cover and buying, hogs that are a little leaner, a little skinnier. Whether if you got an open front, you're going to get a little more natural air, and hogs are going to naturally get a little skinnier, and you're going to, you'll be able to trim them up better. So I would say that you nailed the maturity part as a buyer. Figure out which kind of pig works best in the climate that you're going to put him in.
Yeah, I don't think there's any magic perfection in terms of maturity either. I think there's so much feeding technology out there, and the better you get at seeing where that individual pig is at their maturity, when they stop gaining lean and start to kind of plane off. We got so much feeding technology for that last 30 days to extend lean gain that or get them fat if they're not doing that. Man, I couldn't agree more. But like understanding and really, as that animal's growing, getting a good feeling of what you think you're going to have to do. Is this going to be an animal I'm adding fat to? Is this an animal that I'm going to be trying to get more protein and extend his lean gain? Or is this an animal that's really set up perfect so I can just throw kind of the kitchen sink out in the last 30 days and just get it all? And so, that we don't just want to grow pigs in our barn. We really want to figure out what they're telling us as they're growing, so that we can really throw that body weight on them and get them hit them at their max potential at the right weight.